Well, here we are. Now that I'm posting this video doesn't mean you need to skip the MSG video. In fact, more of you will probably watch that. But wanted to go back to back again this week like I did earlier in the week. And in this video, I have my 4 favorite YouTubers in mind. You might be thinking 4. Who has a top 4 list? Well, that's about all I watched. I didn't want to include like professional channels. These are more like people are similar to me. They're just like a person in their house, haven't invested a ton of money in equipment, things like that. Although Ken and Joe, who are on the list, their channels look very professional. I would say they are professionals, but yet not really. You know what I mean? They're not like full on like going for it and investing thousands of dollars in every video and spending weeks on a video. Like those people I consider like pro YouTubers. And then there's like amateur YouTubers that look like pros, and that's where I would put these guys. You know, that seems like a little bit of an insult. I mean, they are pros. Call them an amateur. I mean, one of the guys worked for the FBI. The other guy's like a professor at a serious university. And here I am calling them amateur YouTubers, comparing them to myself. You guys get the point. Ken's never going to watch this. Hopefully Joe watches this and is like, what the fuck? I'm an amateur now? Nah, Joe, you're a pro. You know it. Now, so number 4 on the list, I learned about thanks to Joe LaRocca's channel. He reviewed the Leyba movie. And Alex is a guy who was never on my radar. He did a lot of like Blu-ray hunting and that type of stuff. And then after years and years of compiling footage and just filming everything, he made a movie. And starts out a little bit like, oh, okay, this is just another like YouTuber vlog type thing. But then you start to realize the story kind of starts to come together. And it's actually a really good movie. And I don't know if you have to be a person that's made YouTube videos to really appreciate the movie or not. Probably certainly would help. If you've never made a YouTube video and you've never tried to get your own channel going and this and that, maybe that movie wouldn't mean as much to you. But I thought it was fantastic. He recently tried to follow up. Didn't show restraint, which is another thing. As a guy who makes YouTube videos, it is hard to show restraint. And Alex had problems with that. His movie was great. He put out some outtakes, which were good. And now he's like tried to put out a sequel. And it did, like Joe LaRocca said in his review, it seemed a little rushed. I agree with that. So if you happen to see this, which I'm sure you won't, practice a little restraint, my man. I know it's hard. It's hard. That movie was awesome. There's probably a lot of pressure. A lot of people, like, I think I even saw in the comments, a lot of people were like, what's next? What's next? It's like, calm down, man. The guy just made a great movie. Who knows what's next? Maybe nothing's next. Who knows? We'll see. So I got Leyba coming in at number 4. And then Joe LaRocca. Oh, Leyba is also the guy, you may have seen him. He has interviewed Ed Furlong several times. And those videos, I think some of them have like 500,000 views. I think before I knew of Alex's channel, I had watched those videos with Ed Furlong, who doesn't look like he's doing great, man, but seems like a pretty good guy. Just like totally honest and humble at this point. It's kind of like a very self-aware, but I'm sure is still very talented underneath it all, you know? At some point, like how Tarantino would kind of resurrect people, maybe somebody needs to do that for Ed Furlong. I don't know if it's Leyba, but somebody. I don't even know if it's Joe LaRocca. It may take a Quentin Tarantino type. So then, number 3 on the list, already mentioned him for the first 3.5 minutes of this video, Joe LaRocca's Daily Review. Just had a great review of the new Avatar yesterday. Puts out a lot of new movies, stuff that maybe we're not aware of because nobody advertises their movies anymore. So he kind of gives you a heads up on something new. Although 2022, a lot of it wasn't great. And then also I look back at some classic movies from the 90s, even going all the way back as far as the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, you name it. He's got a little bit of everything on his channel. You know, if there's a movie you like, type in the title of that movie with Joe LaRocca, and it's likely that maybe not likely. There's a million movies, and he's done 1,000+ reviews. Then at number 2, we got Frankenstein's Lab. Now, these guys, they sit around, they've lost me a little bit in 2022. They went to Patreon, which I got no problems with people starting a Patreon. But what these guys do is they just take comedians or funny stuff from a TV show or a movie or something, and then they play that, and then it's a split screen, and they react to it. And it is very good. I just didn't feel real great about them, like, putting that behind a paywall. I'm like, how are you going to take, like, Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr's material, and you're watching it, and now somehow you get paid for that? Something about that don't sit right with me. It's like, come on, guys. You know, a little ad revenue, maybe, but getting, like, monthly subscriptions so you can laugh at the funny stuff Bill Burr has put together and said, I don't know about that. But all that aside, it is very entertaining to watch like your favorite Chappelle bits or Bill Burr or Bert Kreischer, whoever it might be, whoever your favorite comedian is. I think might even have like Dane Cook on there, maybe as far back as Richard Pryor. I believe they're out of Houston. They both look like they're barbecued all the time. They never admit to it. They never do anything on screen, but they sure look like it, man. They look like they get as high as a giraffe and then just watch funny videos, which, I mean, who hasn't done that? These guys just decided to record themselves and make it their channel. And then number one on the list, Ken Mains. I don't know if you guys are into true crime or not. I kind of dabble in true crime. I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit it. But one thing I'm not embarrassed to admit is I like Ken Mains' channel. He's not salacious at all. He's the opposite of that. A whole bunch of I don't knows, we don't knows. I don't even want to speculate. So there are times when it can get a little boring. But he does a lot of old cold cases. That was his thing. He was a cold case detective. Actually solved a cold case. Then went on to write a book about it and kind of make a whole career out of that one cold case he solved. He did some undercover work for the FBI. Those stories are kind of cool. You can see he's like covered in tattoos. And then what really humanized him for me, you know, he's a little bit arrogant. And when you look at him, you're just going to see a meathead. You know, he's always talking about rock and roll. He's got rock and roll t-shirts, his sleeves ripped off, just tattoos everywhere. But when I really was like, all right, man, he's just a human like everybody else. He lost a son young. You know, Ken's not that old of a guy. So the fact that he's had a son who's already died, I know the son must have been somewhat young. And one time in one of his cases that came up and he was talking about that. And you could see he was trying to hold back the tears, just even thinking about his kid. And just that moment right there, I was just like, yeah, man, maybe this guy's not so bad after all. I used to kind of hate watching him and be like, oh, who's this arrogant jerk think he is? He solved one case and now he's written 7 books. But he's actually pretty good. Now he's kind of dabbling. He used to always just go back to old cold cases. And then he did like a solved or unsolved. And then he did Ken's Key Clue. And right now, he's kind of been doing some Idaho stuff. And then he's also been talking to, now I don't know where you stand on this. Mary watches a lady, this profiler lady, who was very against interviewing criminals in prison. He's recently has been talking to a guy that's on death row. The guy doesn't seem like a total psychopath. In fact, it seems like he has spent the last 30 plus years in prison educating himself. And now he's just like, look, I'm a killer. I've spent time around killers. I think maybe I have something to offer. You know, a lot more to offer than your average Yahoo out here on YouTube, that's for sure. So the fact that Ken is now interviewing this prisoner, I think is kind of cool. Oh, look who's come to join the party. What's up, man? You're not going to like Delta 8, man. You stay out of the Delta 8. You guys like Delta 8? I finally jumped in. I think it's kind of cool. It's perfect when it's mixed with other stuff. But, man, if you're hard up, can't get to a dispensary, don't want to drive to Michigan, just go down to VIP Smoke and get you a Delta 8 joint. They're fucking pretty cool. Like climbing on the printer right now. All right, guys, boom. So there it was, my 4 favorite YouTubers. And then honorable mention, I couldn't add it because it was a professional channel, but I do like the way they've kind of made the pivot. They were a meat eater. It was a hunting channel, basically. Not basically, it was a hunting channel. And then it got to the point where hunting channels on YouTube were considered like animal cruelty, which I understand. I totally disagree with it, but I do understand. I mean, you're some CEO of a tech company. You think hunting's animal cruelty. And, you know, look, it's hard for me to sit here and argue that it's not, other than to say it's not. All right, come on. There's a difference between animal cruelty, dog fighting, torturing a little kitten or something, versus like hunting for meat. It's not, I mean, I don't know, man. It's how the guy eats, feeds his family and all that. Like, he's legit as it gets. And some episodes, they don't even like an animal's not even harmed. I don't understand, you know. So then, but lately he's kind of pivoted to more of a cooking show. And then he's got other shows, these characters that have been involved in the hunting show over the year. There's this lady now that has a cooking show. She likes to go out and like look for truffles and mushrooms and different flowers and grasses and stuff, and then includes them into her meals that she cooks. And they kind of wrap it all up in one 25-minute episode. There's a good fishing show, and then a lot of it ends with cooking, just the way Meat Eater, the hunting show, did. First they'd go out and hunt, then they'd eat. Meat Eater. Get it? He lives to hunt and he hunts to live. All right, guys, boom, we're out of here. Ken Mains, Frankenstein's Lab, Professor Joe LaRocca's Daily Review, and Alex Leyba, perhaps a one-hit wonder, but damn, that one hit was strong. All right, guys, you guys helped me out a lot this year, man. You can't trust any crap, man, so you might as well just watch YouTubers talking about stuff. It's all nonsense out there. All right, guys, boom, we're out of here. And 6th favorite YouTuber would have been myself.